Hello everyone, Sab here. Welcome back or to Madrasa.net. Today we have a very important grammar lesson and it's about the passive voice or the passive form, okay? Now, today's lesson is going to be divided into three categories. Number one, transitive and intransitive verbs. Number two, the difference between active and passive voice. And number three, how to change sentences to the passive voice. Okay, so let's get started. Now, transitive verbs versus intransitive verbs. What is a transitive verb and what is an intransitive verb? Now, transitive verbs, they need an object. They have to have an object in them. So if you take a look at this example here, I eat breakfast. The verb to eat here is a transitive verb because I can't just say I eat and I stop right here. I eat what? So breakfast here is the object. So to eat is a transitive verb because it has an object. An intransitive verb, however, does not have an object because it doesn't require an object. It doesn't need an object. So let's take a look at the example here. She smiles. The verb to smile here is an intransitive verb because it doesn't really need an object. Most of the times, intransitive verbs are followed by adverbs or prepositions, okay? So, for example, I can just say, she smiles beautifully. Okay, so I used an adverb here, okay? Or I can just use a preposition. I can say, she smiled at me, okay? So I could either use an adverb or a preposition, okay? That is the meaning of an intransitive verb. It doesn't have to have an object, okay? But the transitive verb, it needs an object, okay? So let's take a look at the next slide. Now, we're going to talk about the difference between active and passive voice, but before, you need to understand the structure, okay, of the passive voice and the active voice and the passive voice. So the active voice is pretty straightforward and also pretty basic, okay, because 99% of the time we are using the active voice, okay, in our daily speech because it's really direct, it's straightforward and easy to understand. So in the active voice, we have subject, verb, and object. It's as simple as that, okay? Here's an example. Katie stole my bag. Now, Katie here is the subject. Stole is the verb, which is steal, okay? This is the past simple of the verb to steal. And the object is my bag, okay? Really simple, really easy to understand. The passive voice, however, in order to change the same sentence to the passive voice, we need to make a few changes, okay? So the object here, we need to bring the object to the front. So we start with the object, which is my bag, okay? And then we have to use to be. And this is very important. So my bag was, and then we have to use the past participle of the main verb here, which is stole. So the past participle is stolen, okay? So my bag was stolen by, this shows the passive. The reason why I put it between parentheses, between brackets, is because we can either use it or not. This is something we are going to discuss later on, okay? So my bag was stolen by who? The subject? By Katie, okay? So the difference here is that we don't start with the subject, but we start with the object. So we drag the object all the way here to the beginning, to the front of the sentence, and the subject goes to the end of the sentence, okay? Let's take a look at the next slide. Now, the difference between active and passive voice, okay? So apart from the structure, which is already different, the subject in the passive voice, in the active voice, is doing the action. So the subject is the doer. The subject is performing the action. Remember Katie from the previous example? Katie stole my bag. So the subject, Katie, is doing the action. But in the passive voice, the subject is not doing the action, okay? Most of the times, it's the receiver. It's receiving an action, okay? The doer of the action is important in the active voice. So Katie is important because Katie is the thief in the example, okay? But in the passive voice, if I say, my bag was stolen, okay, by Katie, or my bag was stolen, here I am putting more emphasis on the action, not the doer. So the action is more important than the doer of the action. Katie is no longer important, okay? The bag, the stolen bag is the most important thing, okay? Last thing, in the active voice, we know the doer of the action. We know who's doing the action, okay? And all information is known in the passive, in the active voice. But in the passive voice, we don't know the doer. We don't know, if I say, for example, my bag was stolen. Who stole my bag? I don't know. Maybe I really don't know the doer, or simply I don't care, okay? We don't really care, or we don't want to include the doer. We don't want to include or mention any name, okay? So most of the times in the passive voice, the doer is not important or simply irrelevant. We don't really care about the doer, okay? So the question of the hour is, can I change every sentence to the passive voice, from active to passive? The answer is no, okay? You cannot change intransitive verbs to the passive voice. You can only change transitive verbs to the passive voice. And in order to use the passive form, you must have an object, okay? So you have to deal with a transitive verb, okay? Now let's take a look at a few examples. Almost 6 billion people own mobile phones. Almost 6 billion people own mobile phones. The verb here is own, okay, which is a present simple verb, okay? Now, if I want to change the same sentence from active to passive voice, of course, the first thing we need to do is to start with the object. So mobile phones are owned by almost 6 billion people, okay? If you noticed, I made a few changes. So the rule is really simple. In order to change any sentence from active to passive voice, you really need to pay attention to the tense of the verb, okay, of the main verb, because to be follows the tense of the verb. If this verb is in the present simple, then in the active, you need to start with either is or are, okay, which is to be, plus the past participle of the main verb, which is own, so it's regular, so owned. Now, how do I know which one to put? How do I know if I put is or are? So here you need to pay attention to the object, okay? Mobile phones here is in the plural. So is my subject in the plural or singular? So mobile phones is in the plural, so we say are, okay? So you need to pay attention to the tense of the verb, and you also need to pay attention to the object in the sentence, okay? Let's take a look at another example. J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter, okay? The book of Harry Potter. So I want to change this into the passive. We use the same strategy. Harry Potter goes to the front of the sentence, okay? And J.K. Rowling goes to the end of the sentence, okay? The verb here is in the past simple. So the rule is really simple. If my verb in the active form is in the past, the passive form is going to be either was or were. Remember, to be always follow the tense of the main verb. So if it's in the past, it should be in the past. If it's in the present, it should be in the present. Plus past participle of what? Of the main verb. So in this case, it's written, okay? So Harry Potter was written by J.K. Rowling. Why did I put was here? Because I am talking about a singular book. The object here is singular. So Harry Potter was written by J.K. Rowling. Someone stole my phone. Someone stole my phone, okay? If I want to change this from active to passive, of course, I need to start with my phone. So my phone was stolen. I have the verb in the past simple, so I use was or were. Now, my object here is singular, so I have to add was to the past participle of the verb stole, stolen, by someone. So the subject here is already unknown. I don't really know who that person is. So I can just say, my phone was stolen, because the action here is important. My phone was stolen. My phone is more important than the person who stole my phone, okay? So I'm putting more emphasis on the object of the sentence. So I can just stop right here. But if you say by someone, it's also correct, okay? Okay, this is, I think, the last example. He took those pictures. He took those pictures. I have a verb here in the past tense. So in the passive form, those pictures were taken by him, okay? Now, the reason why I have were taken here is because my object, which is the subject in the passive voice, is in the plural, okay? So I have to add were. So those pictures were taken by him. But what happened here? So why did he became him in the passive voice? So personal pronouns or subject pronouns in the active voice change to object pronouns in the passive voice. Okay? This is something you need to understand. So personal pronouns like he, she, they change to object pronouns in the passive form. So if I have she here, I would say by her, okay? Okay, as usual, time for a pop quiz to test you. I'm going to quiz you. Okay, so change the sentences to the passive form, okay? Take a look at the picture here. So water covers 70% of the Earth's surface. Water covers 70% of the Earth's surface. The trick here is to go underline the verb, find the verb in the sentence, underline it when you do, and then try to identify the tense of the verb. So covers here, is it in the present tense or the past tense? Are you thinking? Awesome, yes, it's in the present tense. So in the passive, it becomes 70% of the Earth's surface, because we always start with the object, is covered by water, okay? So covers becomes is covered. Again, my object here is singular, the Earth's surface, okay? And the past participle of cover, covered, okay? Next one. Take a look at the picture, okay? So this is a natural disaster, flood. The flood affected our neighbors, okay? So in American English, you don't have to add the you here, okay? So it's without you. The flood affected our neighbors. If I want to change it to the passive form, again, I pay attention to the verb tense, affected. It's in the past. So in the passive, it's either was plus past participle or were plus past participle. So yeah, our neighbors, again, object goes to the front, were affected by the flood. Again, the only reason why I put were here is because My object, which is the subject in this case, is in the plural, okay? My neighbors, okay? I am talking about more than one neighbor, okay? So our neighbors were affected by the flood, okay? And always add this, okay, when the subject is important. Okay, let's take a look at some other examples. Now, the Greeks didn't build the pyramids. So I underlined the main verb for you to make it easier. So didn't build. This is a past tense verb in the negative form. You can also include the negative form in the passive voice, okay? So it should become the pyramids. Of course, this one goes here and this one goes there. I need to add a by. So if my verb is in the past tense, in the passive voice, it becomes was or were plus past participle. Now, I have the pyramids, not one pyramid. So it's in the plural. It should become were. But here I have the negative form, so were not or weren't. So the pyramids were not built, okay? This is the past participle of the verb build, okay? The pyramids were not built by the Greeks. Next example, the police catch the thief. The police catch the thief. My verb here is underlined and it's in the present tense. So, the thief, I have only one thief, so it's in the singular, is the past participle caught. Caught. So is caught by the police. I can stop here because it's obvious, okay? Who arrests the bad guys? Police officers, okay? So I can just say the thief is caught by the police. Now, next one, he opens the door. My verb here is in the present tense. So the door, only one door, is opened by him, okay? Again, personal pronouns in the active voice change to object pronouns in the passive voice. The last example, Leonardo da Vinci painted the Mona Lisa. Painted is my verb, and it's in the past tense. So, the Mona Lisa, I'm talking about one painting, one famous painting. So this is in the singular. So the Mona Lisa was painted by Leonardo da Vinci, okay? So, remember, pay attention to the tense of the verb in the active voice, okay? Because to be always follows the tense of the verb in the active voice. Personal pronouns change to object pronouns in the passive voice, and also pay attention to the object. If it's in the singular, then you need to put is or was. If it's in the plural, you need to put were or are in the present simple. Now, these are not all the tenses, okay? This is only part one of the video, so I hope it was clear. Definitely stay tuned for part two to talk about other tenses like the past, the perfect tense, past perfect, present perfect, the future tense as well. So I hope this was crystal clear. And yeah, stay tuned and I will see you soon. Goodbye. Take care. And as usual, stay at school, okay? See ya.